What is the most precious gift you have in your life? Where is your heart? What should you be living for? Join us in just a minute on our episode of The Ark of Noah.
There is no man more dear to me throughout the whole of history than the one who was sent as a guide, leading people from darkness to light. His message was simple and clear, that there is one God whom we must all fear, inviting people towards Allah. His name is Muhammad Mustafa. His name is Muhammad Mustafa.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome viewers for another episode of The Ark of Noah. With me in the studio is Sheikh Moutasem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh. Welcome to you once again for your return on the set.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Abdullah. Thank you very much. I appreciate this.
Good to have you back in the studio.
Good to be with you as well.
Allah
Inshallah, the viewers.
In this episode we're going to be discussing the blessing of Islam and what a gift it is from Allah. And certainly it's quite a gift, Sheikh. But before we go there, I'd like to ask you, can you give us a small summary? Because obviously we're going to address this subject in depth. And can you give us a little bit more information about the situation of the Ummah right now?
Yes, alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. You know, Abdullah, what happens with most people today, people get caught up in the details. The reality in which Muslims live today sometimes causes most people to lose sight of who they really are. And actually it sometimes blurs their vision, so they are not able to see what they really possess, because we possess a wonderful religion. We possess the only religion, the only way of life that is accepted by our Creator, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even in the midst of what we are going through, we should never lose sight of this most important thing, because it has to do with the essence of life. Allah draws our attention in Surah Ali Imran, right at the end, to that very notion. He says, لا يغررك تقلب الذين كفروا لا يغرنك تقلب الذين كفروا في البلاد. Do not be deluded by the fact that the enemies of Allah are dominant at a certain stage. متاع قليل ثم مأواهم جهنم وبئس المهاد. They will have some enjoyment, some good times, okay? But in the final tally, or at the end, they are going to have, to receive the punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't get caught up in the thick of thin things. That's the wisdom behind it. So as Muslims, we have to realize that we possess the most important thing in this world, that we have the most powerful tool that humanity has for change on an individual level, on the level of the whole ummah. We possess the catalyst, the tools and the strategy for the most profound change in human life. So unless we appreciate it, we will not be able to relate to the present reality in which we live. And another thing, if we don't appreciate it, we will fail to appreciate why we need to know what is the Ark of Noah at our time, where is it, and how we can get on board.
So what is the thing that's going to save us? Yes, exactly.
That's it. If we don't appreciate it, then, you know, if you have like gold, if you have a treasure, and you don't realize how valuable it is, you will just leave it for, and anyone can take it, because if you don't really realize how precious it is. But if you really get to know how valuable it is, you will obviously hide it in the most secure place in your house, or probably dig up some hole and keep it there.
Okay, Sheikh, so we're going to talk a little bit about the value of deen a little bit later in the program. I just want to get from you a little bit more about the situation of the ummah, and perhaps how the average Muslim of all walks of life and all levels of, as we know, different levels of knowledge and iman, what are they feeling right now? How are people feeling about themselves, about the religion, and about the situation that they're in? What's the reality, Sheikh?
Well, the reality could be very sad, but on the other hand could be very bright as well. And I'll use your word, most people feel dejected, probably many people feel hopeless, and they're looking for anyone to come and just change the world for them.
Why are they feeling like that? What's
The reason is, most of us have failed really to appreciate the weight of the religion we have. It's, as I said in the introduction, it's a very powerful tool. And if we really understand the inner dynamics of faith, we will start to appreciate how powerful it is. Just consider the example of the Prophet ﷺ when he came to Arabia. The Arabs were the most decadent nation on earth, killing one another, eating carcasses, cutting the relations of the womb. They were highway bandits and robbers, and they had a very low level of morality. The Prophet ﷺ, even the empires, the Persian Empire, the Roman Empire, the other great powers at that time, none of them had an interest in the Arabian Peninsula, because the Arabs posed no threat to nobody, so no one gave them any value. Within about 23 years, the Prophet ﷺ changed the whole balance of power. Now the Arabs became the torch carriers to the world. They brought civilization to the world, they brought people from different nations, and they put them into this wonderful mixture of nations. No racism, no fanaticism, no extremism. It was just an ideal way of life, an ideal society where people from all walks of life, people from all origins, all backgrounds, all races, they all melted into this one beautiful, profound identity. They became the scholars of the world. They taught the world mannerism, etiquettes. They told the world civilization. They taught the world how to live, and they shared that. It wasn't like a superior. They didn't speak from a superior position. They didn't have this attitude. They just approached the people. They shared this religion and this attitude with them, and they managed to make this most profound transformation in the history of humanity. We still have the same. We still have the same tool today.
I think Sheikh as well. I'm just thinking about what you're saying. How much our situation today reflects the sort of the ignorance of the times before. In terms of we live in a multicultural society often, and just taking the example of dealing with other religions, and look how the Arabs and the pious predecessors that came before us. Look how they dealt with the other religions, and we live in this situation. Just to take one example of the situation of the Ummah today is that we live in a multicultural world, and perhaps many of us many people are involved with their own, let's say, tribe or people, etc. And they taught us just this lesson of how to deal with other religions, and what protection Islam gave was absolutely amazing.
I really appreciate the fact that you asked this question, Abdullah, because many people, and this is the general understanding, and it just reveals how generally we are, including myself, we just swallow things that are publicized or circulated in the media. The world has always been multicultural. Yeah. It has always, especially in Islam. Islam, when it spread outside of the Arabian Peninsula, it dealt with different religions, different races, different backgrounds, different languages. And because Islam is a global religion, it wasn't sent for the Arabs alone. The Arabs don't have some kind of a monopoly over Islam. They don't have this right. It's the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, given or sent to humanity. It's their right. It's their right to get hold of it, to have access to the right teachings of Islam. So the world has always been multicultural, and when the Muslims spread the message around, they lived with different people from different religions, different backgrounds. Take, for example, Jerusalem. Jerusalem itself was a hub of civilization, multiculturalism. You had Jews living there, Christians living there, Muslims living there, different religions as well, and different nationalities, different races. You had the European race was there, white Caucasian. You had African origins, you had Arab origins, you had Persians as well. And until today, some inhabitants of what is known as Bilad al-Sham, or natural Syria, where Syria, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon are today, you have people, actually you can find white people, you can have African people, you can have pure Arabs, and you can have actually people from Asian people, you can have, sometimes you have Chinese. So the Muslim world has always been multicultural, and Islam has laid the foundations for the right approach to deal with all these situations.
And perhaps the testament to that, I think, in your statement, Sheikh, is the fact that the Qur'an was used for the basis of giving the law of the majority of the world for 1400 years, under all banners, all religions included under the sort of banner of that constitution, which would be the Qur'an.
Definitely.
So it's a testament to the justice of the Islam.
It was.
Rebels.
You know, Abdullah, even the European historians, when they talk about the Crusades and when they talk about, especially about Spain, what is known today as Spain, which is Al-Andalus, they mention that the Spanish people who lived under the reign of the Muslims, under the Umayyad Caliphate in Al-Andalus or in Spain, they were called they were labeled as Spaniards, or they called them Mozarabs. They were so happy to live under the reign of Muslims. They were so proud of that identity, to the extent that even when the first Crusades or the first attacks from France and from Europe were marching to Spain, trying to expel the Muslims out of Spain, the Mozarabs or the Spaniards were fighting alongside the Muslims, because they were so proud to belong to such a wonderful civilization. They had the rights. And some of the major scholars, the major scientists in the fields of chemistry, physics, and the different disciplines, they were actually Christians, Jews, they were Muslims, there were even pagans, but they were given the right to have their own contribution to humanity as long as they kept within the etiquettes of Islam in dealing with other religions.
Okay, Sheikh. So before we go to a break, we want to think about Islam and what is such a great gift, really. Can you give us a little taste of what you have in store for us in the talk about the blessing of Deen?
Yes, well, and this, we have to appreciate what we really have. And as I said, we shouldn't lose our sight in the midst of what's happening in today. Don't get caught up on a superficial level. This is what I say to myself. Don't get caught up on a superficial level. There is always a deep meaning for everything. Try to find these underlying patterns. They will connect you to the eternal, universal truths about this life. They will make our understanding more accurate. Islam is the only way that is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Islam is the only way to paradise. And Islam is the only way of life that is totally compatible with human nature. Inshallah, we will talk about this if we have more time.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. We will be back right after the break for more discussion on the blessing of Islam, a gift from Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا. Learning how to recite the Quran properly, learning the meaning of what we recite, including the ahkam from the verses which we recite, trying to implement what we learn in our daily life. Would listen to the participants and the guests. We'll take your phone calls. We're going to recite live. We'll listen to your recitation and we'll correct it according to the rules and regulations which we'll state in each episode. Now your dream will come true.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. We've been discussing the status of the Ummah and the greatness of Islam. With us is Sheikh Moutasem. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
The Ummah is in such a state. It's in dire need. It's dejected, as we discussed. Where do people turn? What have we got to be joyful for? And why is Islam such a great gift?
SubhanAllah, we have so much to be joyful for, and to be proud of, and to be happy, and to be enthusiastic about. The fact that, and this is something that, because most of the time it has been discussed in a very theoretical way, people don't really see the impact of Islam on themselves. But I really see that anyone who studies Islam in depth, especially let's talk about the articles of faith. The articles of faith are the most profound aspects of human character. Because many people think that Islam is just some kind of an ideology like any other ideology. You just embrace it and try to stand for it and defend it. It's not only like that. Islam is much more profound than this. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-A'raf, أَلَا لَهُ الْخَلْقُ وَالْأَمْرُ. To Allah belongs the creation, He's the creator, and He's the legislator. So He created us in a certain format, and He gave us the guidance that is totally compatible with our own nature. So nothing will improve us in all aspects of life except what Allah gave us. Any kind of system we come up with is going to have some negative effects. It's just like, to give an analogy, Allah, for example, it's just like a hardware and software. Only this software is compatible with this hardware. It's the same thing in Islam. So Islam is the right program for us. And if we just seek for other than that, obviously we'll fall in trouble. And the present reality in which we live today, even like the Western civilization, which is very profound in terms of technology and science, but what about the other aspects of life? The moral aspect, what about the social aspect, what about psychological aspects? We know that the numbers of suicide are profound. Like in the world, the statistics of the World Health Organization, it just indicates that every 49 seconds there's a person who commits suicide and succeeds in that, let alone the people who fail to kill themselves. So what does this point to? And the highest rates, by the way, are in the most advanced countries. And guess what? It's the younger segment of society that is more prone to commit suicide. So if we turn away from the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obviously we will find misery and depression. And honestly, as to the elements of success, they are all found in Al-Islam. But it's just, as I said, recently our approach to Islam has become very theoretical, very stagnant, and very obsolete. It's not a proactive approach. We just see ourselves as being defeated. We see ourselves that only in the past we had glory, and today we are helpless. And this is because we have placed ourselves in the position of a victim. We have really seen ourselves as victims, so we don't see that we have a choice, but actually we have. But I will turn the question on you. I mean, you came to Islam a few years ago, and actually could add some element of practicalities. How did you feel that Islam really changed your life? Sometimes Muslims fail to appreciate this, but as you have come this long journey, probably you have seen more of these dynamics in action.
Well, I have to say, I mean, it's a huge subject, really, but I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he, for anyone who is truly searching, and that was something that I had, was that I was truly searching for the truth, then it's a promise of Allah that He will guide the honest person who's looking for the truth. So I think one of the things, because obviously I wasn't born with Islam, and most of the Ummah, of course, is born with Islam. So one of the things I think they've got to do is, because they've heard it all before, isn't it? This is the thing. They've heard it all before, so yes, Allah, blah, blah. And that's how it becomes. It becomes, become a bit deaf. But to really search the truth, and as you mentioned rightly, I think, Sheikh, from the Qur'an and Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to really search out that truth, it revives that deen, and to really know, what does Allah want? How should I be? How can I be the best person? How can I be closer to Allah? How can I, when Allah sees that in your heart you're honest with yourself and you're honest with Allah, I think that in itself is a huge thing to realise the blessings of Islam.
So did you feel like, on a personal level, on your whole approach to things, did you see that Islam really changed your orientation? And
I mean, totally, immediately, because with that search came the blessing of Iman.
yeah.
So that enables you to, you know, I was free of the other systems that have been shackled on me, you know.
Yes, subhanAllah.
And I was just now being shackled to the, as you said, the natural system, and it feels so normal.
Yeah.
And within not long, I felt, this is just normal to me, you know. I'm praying 5 times a day. There was a struggle, and I think that's something that the Ummah's got to realise, is that we have to struggle.
Yeah, I agree with you, Abdullah, because sometimes Muslims take it for granted. We're Muslims, and they don't really they don't try to get a fresh kind of outlook on Islam. So they just, as you said, they become deaf to it because the same words are repeated. So somehow they become redundant. They don't give the right impression or the impression they're supposed to do. And this is where your own initiative comes into play, where you have to start searching for the truth.
I want to ask you a question. I mean, in terms of the realization of this great gift, there were a lot of talk. I mean, there's a lot of talk about Islam and a lot of different talk, but we'll come to the different talk later. But how can we realize, I've just put forward a couple of my ideas, but from a scholarly point of view, how can we realize the key factors in realizing this deen and climbing those levels of Iman? What can we do here?
You know, one of the most powerful tactics we can do in this regard is just to have a fresh kind of study of the Qur'an, especially the verses where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws our attention.
So when you say fresh, sorry to interrupt you, but when you say fresh, do you mean to really clean of our hearts of any old ideas or preconceptions or old ideas or cultural ideas or something like that? Do you mean just start from a blank slate and just let...
This is a very good question. What I mean by fresh is to link your own effort to the most central notion in your life. Like as human beings, we can never approach things with an purely objective point of view. It's impossible. We're human beings. Yeah, definitely. There has to be something. The challenge is just to place in your heart and in your mind the right notions. If you have these, approach things with the right notion, then you can have a better vision of things. What I try to explain this or break it down, just like with Islam, how can we have a fresh kind of understanding of the Qur'an or the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? First of all, link your heart to the notion that of the reality of this life. The notion of the reality of this life. We are here, placed on this earth for a certain amount of time, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us. He told us that this is not the real life, it's only a test. Your real life is eternal. Don't think you will live only for 60, 70 years. That's not it.
So we're talking about here thinking in terms of eternity, not in the confines of the dunya.
That's
thinking,
it.
what am I sending forward?
Yes. Because you're providing basically the right context for things. If you look at life as 60, 70 years, you're only taking one segment, one part of the context. Take the whole context in account. Then you'll start to put things in perspective.
So how important is reflection on these things?
Reflection is the key. It's called tafakkur in Islam. Tafakkur, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls the people to make this tafakkur or this reflection. Try to contemplate everything around you.
How important is that in the achievement of realizing the great gift, do you think?
Obviously, as I said, just go back to the most central notion in this life, is that what is the meaning of my existence? I exist here for a certain purpose. I was created for a purpose. So everything in my life should be channeled to that direction. Once you start to create this momentum, things will fall in place. And when you read the Qur'an, you will be surprised how much you will get of it, more than you thought you could. As you will start to develop this fresh kind of approach to the Qur'an. And if we don't have enough time, probably the next episode, inshallah, I have so many things that we can, inshallah, can revive our appreciation of how precious Islam is and how beautiful it is.
We will definitely focus on that at some stage. Meanwhile, I would like to ask you, what has Allah, we've talked about Islam, from the greatness of it from different aspects. What has Allah promised the believers?
Allah promised the believers the most precious dream a person could ever have in his life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually called or talked about the people who enter paradise, that they have had fawzan azima. the ultimate success. And those who lose it, they will have the ultimate failure. So this is what Allah has prepared, in brief.
Okay, thank you very much. We are coming to the close of the episode. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion, reviewing the greatness of Islam from a number of different angles. Join us again for the next episode of Noah's Ark. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
There is no man more dear to me throughout the whole of history than the one who was sent as a guide, leading people from darkness to light. His message was simple and clear, that there is one God whom we must all fear, inviting people towards Allah. His name is Muhammad Mustafa.